Okay, hello and welcome to the October 5th JupyterLab weekly call. Today we have 18 people on the call, pretty good. And we have, oh, look at that, a fairly full agenda. That's nice too. Great. So maybe, I just wanted to see if there's, no, there isn't. I was gonna say, we just, I think, have finished the JupyterLab Software Steering Council representative election, but I don't think the person who administered it is here. So we'll leave that for an announcement later. It might even still be running because it's not midnight, I'm not sure. But anyway, for now, why don't we get started? The first person on the agenda today is Jeremy, but he says he's not joining the call and he's just posting his updates. So I can read through these unless there's someone who knows more about them who would like to chime in for Jeremy.
I don't, but I have one quick question about it. So he posted a nice MyBinder demo of Jupyter Notebook 7, which I've been playing around with for a few minutes. And it's really nice, but I noticed maybe a little bug, and I'm just curious where to post that bug. There's a link to a pull request, but that's for something completely different, even though it's right there in that list. That's for the
cookie. I would, if you find bugs in NB7, I would do them in the GitHub/Jupyter/notebook repo.
Okay.
Yeah, we do triage for that on Thursdays at 10 o'clock Pacific.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, so Jeremy's posts are largely about the raft of releases that landed in Notebook 7 for a pre-release. That includes all of the recent changes you've seen in the JupyterLab code base with CodeMirror 6, RTC improvements, the virtual notebook rendering. It also includes all of the Lumino 2 stuff we've been talking about. And because Notebook 7 is composed of JupyterLab components, it is by necessity third in the order of releases whenever, say, something like Lumino changes. First, Lumino has to publish, then Lab has to publish, then Notebook can publish. So this is the first Notebook 7 pre-release that has a lot of new things in it and is distinctly different from RetroLab. So please play around with it if you are interested in this stuff at all. And also, it looks like there's a bunch of different places to talk about it. There's the discourse topic about it, and there's, of course, the notebook repo in case you find anything wrong. And if you don't want to install it, you just want to play with it, just click on that binder. So yeah, any questions or comments about that? Okay, cool. Well, you know what then, before we get fully started with other stuff, why don't we, it's been a while since we've done this, but I think we actually have some new people on the call. And how about we pause for a second and do some introductions, because I'm not sure everybody knows everybody. So with that being said, if you would like, I will be silent and cause an awkward silence, and you can jump into the silence and introduce yourself, but you don't have to.
Is this for new people to introduce themselves, or do you want every single person to introduce themselves?
I think anyone who feels like other people may not know them and wants to should introduce themselves, because no one's new to me. So it really depends on where you feel you want to, whether you feel you want to do an intro, I would say. And I just basically don't want to point to someone and say, do it.
Okay. Well, I'm William Stein. I work on CodeCalc, which hosts lots of JupyterLab, Jupyter Classic, and other Jupyter notebooks. And I also started Sage, so I worry about symbolic math sometimes as well.
I'm Isabella, she, her. I am formerly a UX UI designer. I care a lot about accessibility, just throwing out there. Yeah, not everyone in this call knows code. I always like to remind people. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Hey, I wanted to say hi again to everyone. My name is Andrew. I do full stack, so I work mostly with JupyterLab, but with all parts of the stack. And yeah, hi again, everyone.
I'll reintroduce myself. Hi, I'm Darian. I work primarily on the front end side of things in JupyterLab, but I guess I have written some Python. It's not my thing though.
Hi, I'm Vidar. I work on a bunch of different Jupyter projects, open source. I also help run the Jupyter deploy internally at our company. Mostly lately it's been IPy widgets and Jupyter server stuff. Yeah, London-based.
Hi, I'm Gabriel. I work at QuantSite. I work a lot with Isabella, accessibility in JupyterLab.
Hi, I'm Sylvain. I work at QuantStack, which is a different company. And I've been working on Jupyter. Yeah, same as Derry. Been working on Jupyter for quite some time. Every part of the ecosystem.
Hey, I'm Frederick. I'm also part of QuantStack, and I'm mainly developing stuff in JupyterLab and maintaining it.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm David. I've been working on JupyterLab recently, especially in RTC collaborative mode, and I also work at QuantStack.
Okay. Hi, me too. I'm working at QuantStack, and I also work on JupyterLab and the JupyterLab extension. And I'm Nicolas.
I assure you, there are people who don't work at QuantStack on this call.
I guess that's my cue. Hi, I'm Steve. I've been working on Jupyter a long time as well. Currently at MongoDB, doing Jupyter stuff, kind of part-time.
I'm Jason Weil. I work at AWS and I do work on JupyterLab, currently working on a new extension. And I work with Andrew, Piyush, and David, who you'll see on other calls as well. I also often run the triage call for JupyterLab and Notebook and anyone else who wants to triage new issues in their projects, which is Thursdays.
I'll go. I'm Alex. I work at IBM. I work mostly in the front end on JupyterLab, and I split my time between working in core JupyterLab and working on the Elira suite of extensions that adds pipeline support to JupyterLab.
I'll go since I work with Alex at IBM. And I've been working on JupyterLab for a couple of years, as well as extensions for JupyterLab and accessibility.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I am a student at Cal Poly, currently working on some Jupyter stuff as my side project. Want to say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carlos. I work at QuantStack too, and I've been working in JupyterLab related stuff for 2 years. Mostly focused on real-time collaboration, and yeah, that's all.
Okay, I guess I'll go. I guess I'll go since everybody else was so gracious. I'm Detroit. My pronouns are she, her. I am a tech newbie, so to be honest, a lot of the things that y'all said, I have no idea what it means, but I'll have a lot of questions, I'm sure, and just very happy to be here and to learn more. I guess that's it for now. Oh, sorry, I do want to say that I have learned some full stack stuff, but I think I prefer front end, specifically on the accessibility side. So I'm very encouraged to hear so many other people have that interest. But thank you very much for your time, and I hope you'll have a good one.
Cool, welcome. Anyone who hasn't gone? All right. Then Alex, you are up on the agenda.
Yeah, just a quick dev question. The answer might be nobody's tried this and I have to keep banging my head against it. But I was wondering if anybody has ever tried supporting taking a file from the file browser in JupyterLab and essentially drag and dropping it into a normal HTML file upload like form input. And if anybody has, if they could either help me or point me in the direction of their code, because I'm trying to do that and it is so far not easy. For me, I don't have any control over that file input. It's part of a separate app being displayed through an iframe. So I can't solve it on the upload side.
So in the drag events, there's a .files attribute. Is that something you can pass along? Oh, wait, no, that's only for the native one. I guess the question is, in the non-native one that we've implemented within Lab, can we create a synthetic event that has that files attribute? But I imagine you've probably been attempting this exact thing for a while.
Yeah, I've only been working on this for about a couple days. So I haven't actually coded those edge cases. It's been more of a brainstorm in that sense. But yes, I did look at those APIs, I guess you call them, like the different fields in that drag event. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing in there that I could directly just pass on to a file upload that would enable it. The fallback I kind of thought of yesterday was triggering download and then just uploading it. But that would cause a download and an upload of the file onto the user's computer. And I felt like, though that is a solution, it is not a very good UX solution.
So what I would try is to use the DOM API to create an event that's a drag event that has a files attribute in it with just like a file name, and let's see if you can just create an empty file that does that. If you can, then maybe you pursue, all right, how do I populate the content of that file? But if you can't, you might be stuck having to figure out a way to work around instead of relying on the native APIs. But I don't know, does anyone have experience with this stuff? I don't know why, but I feel like Mehmet might, just because of all the weird things he had to handle in Galata, but maybe not. I would have said ask the internet, but you sort of are asking the internet, so.
Yeah, sure, I missed the beginning of the conversation. This was about file drag and drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to support being able to drag and drop a file from the Jupyter file browser into a standard HTML file upload, like a file input, that I don't have control over. It's in a web app that's in an iPhone.
I see.
Like this use case is trivial if you're co-located. So if like your Jupyter instance is running on the same place as your file system, because then they share. The problem is if they're not, which is my client's actual use case. So
I see. I haven't done anything like that actually. So sorry, I'm not able to
well,
help.
knowing nobody's done it before is helpful.
Well, so actually, if you step back for a second, so you want a file that someone can access from within Jupyter to be uploaded to someplace outside of Jupyter, correct? What if you wrote a server extension that sends that file via curl or whatever the API that you were going to upload to, and the front end just triggers that server extension mechanism? I see Vidar has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that as far as I remember the APIs, for having looked at this previously, not for this, but for looking at the drag stuff, you have to set the data when the drag starts. I don't think you have the option of doing like a deferred thing. So ideally that's something you would be able to do, and you can search to see if it's possible. But if it's not possible, you have to get the entire file contents from the contents manager when the drag starts. And that's a bit of potentially an overhead for people who just want to open the file in well, I guess it's cached. Oh no, we don't do caching, but that's a ticket they have for Jupyter Server, right? To cache the contents, API content of files that don't change. But yeah, just a point to think about.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Sorry, go ahead, Sylvan.
Yeah, from the point of view of JupyterLab, when you hover on the iframe, the only element that it knows is the iframe. So you could probably do something for drop event on the iframe.
Yeah, I actually am pretty solid on the drag and drop part because we already actually have that implemented in Elira, because you can drag files into our pipelines directly from the file browser. The caveat there is the pipeline editor only cares about the path, because it is eventually run on the same server as the file exists in Jupyter. So it doesn't know the file contents, whereas this upload needs to essentially get the file contents. And that's where I kind of got stuck because like I couldn't figure out how to do that without essentially, like, I think somebody said, like, including the whole contents of the file as part of the drag and drop, where you like actually like essentially buffer the whole contents of the file in, I guess, the browser. But I have a few ideas that I've gotten from the various things that people have said. So, oh, there's a drag and drop attachment. Thank you. I'll look at that. Oh, that's in the cells. Yes, I believe I actually already did look at that. But yeah, thanks, not to drag the meeting on too long, but thanks for all the help. This does actually give me a lot of ideas and paths forward. So, and if I come out with some cool breaking edge like solution, I'll share it next week.
Cool. I think just the hearing the different points of view on this, I think that given the arbitrary size of files, given the fact that you might need them when the drag starts and all, it to me points to a server-side solution, which just looks like a drag and drop to the client, but actually it's the server doing the work. But you might discover that there's a clever workaround. So I'd be curious to see what you do.
Yeah, I do see that you can define URI MIME types. So you might be able to do some clever things with that by having a URI to the contents API or the static file API, whatever it is.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas that I had, but I had not yet attempted. So that is actually probably going to be the first idea I try.
Mehmet?
I would think if you don't have any control over the destination code base, the browser may not allow you to drop files in there. because of security reasons. But if you had any control over the destination source base, you could like post messages that contain this file.
Yes, I do not have any control over the destination source, no matter how much I wish I did.
I would think this is against security policy to allow file drag drop onto from another frame.
There's an actual file upload field, like an input field, inside the iframe.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be allowed to do it programmatically from the security perspective.
Ah, I see what you're saying. Yes, that could be a problem. Yeah. I do have a fallback in my head, which is when they try to drag and drop, it gives them a nice little dialogue that says, hey, download this and upload this, which is not the best UX, but it is a fallback to prevent confusion of people trying to drag and drop files and Lumino instead just opening that file in a new section of your UI.
Hey, maybe we should move on because this is only the first item and we're already half an hour into the meeting.
I agree.
Cool. Although, let's be fair, this wasn't a half-hour conversation. Isabella, you are.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I didn't say that.
Hello. Yep, it's Isabella again. I'm here with my usual announcement that we will have the JupyterLab accessibility call, even though really it's kind of all of Jupyter accessibility conversations at this point, happening after 15 minutes of the end of this scheduled call. That was a lot of fumbling, but basically it's on the community calendar. It's accurate. Hope to see some of y'all there. Linked agenda. If you're interested, everybody's welcome to that. So yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, it's in 47 minutes on this channel. Okay, Sylvan and Carlos, you're up.
You wanna go ahead, Carlos?
Basically, an update on my PR for with the empty notebook. I updated the PR and leaving the same behavior that we had before when we are not using collaboration. And we have the collaborative flag then I'm allowing the notebook to be empty. And that's all. I'm also working on another PR in Jupyter, in Jupyter YDoc to add the cell from the backend when we are in collaborative mode. And that's all. So that way we keep the same behavior we had before, but yeah, a bit safer. And that's it.
Sylvan, were you going to add anything to
that? Yeah, just one thing that we would like to add. So from an end user perspective, in both cases, they should not really change their experience because in collaborative mode, the cell is going to be added from the backend. In non-collaborative mode, we retain the current behavior. However, in the collaborative mode, you have some latency, right? Because the backend is the one adding the cell. So it's not done in one transaction. And therefore, we may actually need to change some more code than we thought initially to make that work. And we wanted to sort of make sure that this is going to be like, this is an approach that people like before putting too much work into this. It's actually close to what William is doing in GoCalc. So you were heard.
So just to be clear, then this PR allows a notebook to be empty, but it doesn't change any user experience or add any UI, right?
Right, it allows a notebook to be empty in collaborative mode. The work of re-adding a cell is going to be done in a different PR in Jupyter Wider. So the issue that we had, maybe I see some people frowning, is that if someone deleted a cell before, anyone, and like it was the last cell, every collaborator would add a new cell because they would find themselves with an empty notebook. And it's a corner case that actually occurs quite often. And yeah, that's the fix that we proposed.
Cool. So regardless of what user experience we end up going with, this has to be resolved because otherwise you might put everyone in a collaborative notebook in a broken state. Is that right?
Well, in a weird state where people get tons of empty cells, their notebooks.
I think right. So there's 18 people on the same notebook and one person deletes it. Now there's 18 new cells in that notebook.
Yeah, that's it. Because everybody
like 100% chance. That's what happens, I think. It's very bad.
So that's what we want to avoid.
Okay, fair enough. So I just labeled it enhancement, but really this is a bug fix.
Yeah, and actually, right now in master, I believe when we create or open a new notebook, we are adding an empty cell extra. I'm not sure. Yeah, and this PR will fix that.
Cool. Okay, any questions or comments on this? All right, Vidar, you're up next.
Yeah, so for me, it's just, I found a specific issue or performance corner case, where if you have a very large source file and you have this, this contextual help, the inspector open, it will freeze the UI for a long time as it loads that in. It's not the network thing, it's the rendering of the text, my model, because it has all these ANSI color codes in it, so it creates a lot of span elements. And then when it's trying to create these links, fix any automatic links to URLs in that text, it just takes forever. It's not optimal. So, you know, that hopefully that's something I can fix separately. But there is also a more general issue there, that if a specific, asynchronous task takes a long time, since the browser is still single-threaded, it will still freeze the UI. So I was wondering, is there any clever way to avoid this other than using like web workers, or should we have a more clever way of using web workers, or is there a more clever general solution other than just fixing this for every one case that comes up? Or is that what we're stuck with? So just picking people's brains there, if anybody knows anything.
I thought web workers was the clever solution.
Yeah, maybe it is, but maybe somebody has a more clever solution or a better way of how to implement web workers in a way that will work for us. Because I think web workers don't have access to DOM. Maybe they can create, but can they create DOM elements and pass them over that can then be attached?
I think your best bet is probably going to be to have a web worker that can like translate code into some intermediate format that the single thread can then render in the DOM.
Right. So that's then a specific solution to this problem, but then the generic part would be a clever or easier way to use web workers from lab, if there is anything needed there.
So without imposing on every single kernel author, because that's where these strings are coming from, is there a way we can do this auto link?
No, the auto link happens in lab. That's our code.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is there any way we could do this auto link on the server side without requiring the kernel to do it?
No, so this is just the generic text plain MIME renderer.
Oh, it's not the text HTML render. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
what it does is that it takes the document and it converts any ANSI color codes to span elements with the correct color. And then it uses the HTML sanitizer to remove any HTML that it only allows span elements. And then it parses through it looking for links to convert to HTML link objects.
Is the issue the rendering or the generation of these span elements?
It's the looking for links bit, as far as I'm able to tell. Just if you have a large document with a lot of color codes, there's like a while loop that iterates over tens of thousands of elements, right?
Okay,
Because
so
if people want to publish links, there is a really nice thing that they can use. It's called HTML, and so it's a MAG type that's supported by the.
Anyway, so this feature was added in the previous pull request, so I don't want to revert that, but we can have that discussion. But the main, and I agree that there's many ways to fix that issue. That isn't a problem. I just wanted to know if there's another more clever way, because it is an issue with JavaScript that everything is happening on the main thread. And if we were writing something that where we were comfortable with having the software phone home, the telemetry you would be interested in is like every time you have a long running task, send a message home saying like, this user did this, this, and this, and now they have the UI was stuck for 2 seconds.
So,
but we don't do that. So we don't really have a good way of capturing those kind of things.
Does Frederick's notebook virtualization? I mean, that seems relevant to this, because then you wouldn't look at these cells, these tens of thousands of links at all.
Well, this is in the inspector, right?
Okay.
So what if you had the way your loop is implemented is instead of a while loop, you have a request animation frame calling request animation frame.
Just to clarify, I have plenty of solutions to fix this specific issue. So I'm happy with that. And yeah, using timeouts is one of them. Seeing if the code can be optimized is another one. It's just
what's the question then?
The question is, if whenever you have something in lab that takes a long time, if it isn't network IO, it will be blocking the main thread and it will cause the UI to hang.
Yeah.
And it's very disruptive to users, right?
Use the Lumino poll class. All right. I mean, no, there isn't a general purpose solution I can think of.
All right.
In a way, it's sort of a byproduct of our concurrency model, and extensions should be good citizens of the event loop. And if they're not, usually the users of these extensions are going to complain to someone.
Yeah, but often it's us they complain to, not the authors of the extension, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, we are the authors of the bad extension, so fair enough. But it'll just make the whole app bad, and it might not be clear why. So we need to, like, if there was a general way out of this, we ought to adopt it. I'm not sure there is.
Is there something to take out from VS Code? I don't know at all the detail of what they're using. I only know they're extensively using web worker for maintaining responsiveness.
Yeah, so that's a generic UX design, right? That the main thread is at some point only for rendering, and then all other work should be happening in separate threads, right? That's for desktop UI applications. That's been a pattern for a long time, but you have a separate loop, thread running the message loop for rendering. But yeah, it's a little harder in the browser, so I'll look a little bit more in web workers to see if it's a pattern we can use more generally. I just was hoping that somebody could tell me, oh, this is already a solved problem. But yeah, I guess not.
For web workers, there is an extension which would benefit, and that's spell checker. So there is one spell checker package on NPM which is very good. but we have not adapted that because of the potential overhead of web workers. If there was a Lumino package which made communication easier or took some of the shared code burden away from us, it would possibly make writing extensions easier, but then that would be another non-standard layer that an extension developer would need to know in addition to the standard web workers API. So I don't know whether this is something that has more benefits than disadvantages. And for the very specific issue that you mentioned of the rendering, that could potentially just be split up into many promises, so that would still be on the same.
Yeah, no, so I looked at that already.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you use promises, they will still be part of the same micro task queue, and the loop will process the entire queue before it looks for else. So you need something like set timeout to break it out to a separate, like macro task.
Because you need an await as well somewhere before to make the task. To make the code switch to async.
No, it's already async. It's still running as a task. The problem is just that any micro task queue will be processed. The default queue will be processed in one. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, as far as I'm able to tell from what I'm reading online, at least. So it only like things like the set timeout and request animation frame and these things like this splits it up into a macro task that then kind of resets.
I think I run into a similar issue before. If there is an issue where I could comment on GitHub, if I find an answer to that, I will send the link.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Vidar, this micro task business, I ran into it with that Lumino PR about this exact thing in messaging. And yes, that is why a promise-based async solution for the messaging in Lumino works, but a promise-based solution for polling doesn't, because polls are promise-based. And so you can't basically cut ahead in the way you can. If you rely on promises for the asynchronous, then you can have the callbacks also be relying on promises, is what I discovered.
Yeah, good point. I see how they connect.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, sorry that there isn't a great answer here, but hopefully some of the things you discover will be abstractable and helpful to some future iteration of this problem. Cool, let's move on. Fred, you are up.
So for the last week, this was the election of the JupyterLab Software Steering Committee, and the election closed yesterday at midnight everywhere on Earth, as Isabella liked to say. And so the election result is that I was elected as the future representative of that software steering committee for JupyterLab. So that was the first announcement. Then the other announcement is that there has been a new patch release for 3.4. The changelog is linked in the note. The main highlight is that we have reverted the default tab switch method. So with 3.4, we have introduced what I expected to be a more efficient way of switching tabs. It works pretty well in Firefox, but actually in Chrome-based, so that means Chrome, Chromium, Edge, as soon as one of the tabs has an iframe or is a PDF viewer, I don't know if it's an iframe too, something that's of that nature, then the UI is broken and the user cannot switch again, and the UI is fully frozen. So as the modification was not enforced, but it was only settings with a new default value, it was reverted to use the old way of doing things. So like Firefox user can still benefit of that if they want. And yeah, we'll see in the future. Maybe with windowing, we can reach a better execution time for time switching, for tab switching. Let's see. And as a follow-up of that, I've created a branch for 3.5.0. Almost all PRs that are for that new version are merged. The only one that's missing is the bump of the Lumino package. So a new version of Lumino 1 has been released. The only difference is the addition of deprecation tag in the documentation to notify user that some API are going to change in Lumino 2. So that's the only PR that's missing in to be merged, and then I'll do a beta release for 3.5.0. Should be tomorrow. And because it's a new minor version, we'll go for a 1 week time before moving to release candidate, and another 1 week for doing the final, if everything is smooth. And so that was it for the announcement. Then I have 2 questions. There are still the notification PR that's open, and if somebody has time to review it, that I will be very grateful. Especially not like the UI, it would be nice, but especially the new API that has been set up, it would be very nice to review that part. And I get the question about Lumino 2. Is it time to move to release beta, or do we want to wait for additional stuff?
About your notifications PR, I will take a look on Friday, and Andrew is on the call. If he has time, maybe he might want to take a look as well, because this is stuff that he's worked on. As far as Lumino 2, I wanted to ask if, is Piyush on the call today?
Piyush is off today.
Okay. Mike, do you have any idea where the what the current state of affairs is with the menu bug fix, the performance?
Yes, I'm pushing a PR today night or tomorrow. And that's actually my next point. I don't know if you want to move to that, or if there is anything Fred might have.
I was done, sorry, Mike.
So I created one pull request in JupyterLab, which removed 6 styles, and merely existence of those 6 CSS rules meant that the performance of hovering over the menu was greatly detrimental. It was greatly detrimental to performance in the Chromium browsers, and this is because browsers have different engines for the calculation of styles and validation of styles, and Chromium is not the best one. So Chromium uses Blink, which is an order of magnitude slower than Firefox system. And when the browser matches a CSS rule, it actually goes the other way. So most people think that it's like, or conceptually, it seems to go from left to right, but the browser's algorithm goes from the right to left. So the last tag, which is there, if it's a generic tag such as div or span, and there are many elements like that on the page, for example, because there is Mapjax rendering, it will invalidate and go over every single element, which is what is causing performance issues and for menu and for some other components of JupyterLab. So part of that is fixed, but there are other styles. So the problematic styles are removed when it comes to the menu hovering, but there are other styles which have specific problems. But unrelated to that, I will be fixing some other issues with the menu, not related to styles, and a generic solution. Why do we need generic solution? So step back. we need the generic solution because if any of the extensions adds a problematic style, even if there is no element which matches this CSS rule, the performance regressions will come back. So the current solution is very brittle. One potential solution would be to switch to Shadow DOM, which I don't know whether we are happy to do that because the support in the browsers is not as good just yet. And it introduces a problem of attachment of styles. I know that with web components exploration, there was probably someone looked at it. And my question is, how do we feel about adding Shadow DOM to Lumino widgets so that we can later explore switching it off for specific components in JupyterLab? And I already did an experimentation, and it's like 6 lines of code. It's just allowing decoupling the widget node from the widget attachment node in the Lumino widget, and then we can switch any single Lumino widget to a Shadow DOM via transitive node, which isolates all the nodes from all the other styles on the web page. Go ahead.
Yeah, my idea with the Jupyter toolkit was to move in that direction in Lumino. I wasn't sure if in the future we will like keep widget and create something that's like widget but with Shadow DOM, like to allow maybe a smoother transition. Like that's probably requires some more testing, but I think it's a good move to do. But yeah, as you said, one of the trouble is with styling, not so much for us, but like for people that are already using part of the application and want to restyle it. It's like, it's not as easy to restyle Shadow DOM.
Yeah, so I actually made a simple loop which runs every second and looks at the style sheets attached to the head and copies them to the Shadow DOM, which is problematic because we are copying the style sheets one by one, but it keeps them in sync. So that's a very dirty solution. What I thought we could do instead is to expose an API to add styles. So that would be a new addition to Lumino.
The trick is to use the easiest and the trick is to use CSS variable, because CSS variable go through Shadow DOM, they pierce through.
I didn't know that. That's useful actually. Yeah.
And the other trick is to be clever a bit. Slot. Sorry, it's getting quite technical, but so slot in Shadow DOM is a way for user to insert children in placeholder that we left inside a Shadow DOM tree. And those are also styled from external styling rules.
To answer Fred's question about going to beta, then, do you expect the contours of the solution to modify the APIs in any way, or are they internal? Like, should we release a beta or not?
So all the API changes is literally adding a new getter for, so when there is a node which is an HTML element, there will be another node which is attachment node, which is also an HTML element by default, but if the widget is configured to use Shadow DOM, then it's Shadow root instead. And Shadow root is a subset of HTML element. So the advice would be to anyone who uses Lumino and attaches widgets to the website to switch from using widget.node to widget.attachment node, so that we can attach the shadow root instead of the node itself. So that it is kind of a public API change, but not a breaking one. It's more like recommendation. If you want to be able to use shadow root in the future, sort of done in your widgets, you need to make that change if in any code you do not use standard widget attach, but something custom.
Okay, I think maybe it is. Well, I guess how far away is this from landing? Because if it's a little bit of time, then we should probably release the beta. But if it's soon, we should probably wait and put this into the beta.
I can make a PR by the end of the week. The question is whether this is the API that we want to go with. And if it's not, maybe there is a cleaner solution rather than a solution that I made as compatible. Maybe then we do not want. Maybe let's have this discussion over the next week and decide, or maybe just go with the beta.
No, I think if it's only a matter of a week, we've been pretty deliberative about Lumino so far. We may as well be cautious, do another alpha, talk through the APIs, because it affects a lot of stuff. So let's I think move with purpose here. I don't know, Fred, does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, it was just to move forward if it was possible and to ping about it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now because we're at the end of the agenda in case anybody wants to make an announcement or something off of the YouTube channel. So hold on a second, brace yourselves.